We're going to stay on the topic of cryptocurrency, and welcome to the stage, if you will, please, Ronnie Moas, who's the founder and director of research at Standpoint Research. Ronnie Moas.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. I hope everyone had a nice time here this week. I was told that I have a clicker here to click through my slides. And there's also a laser button here, so if anybody sleeps while I'm speaking, I can zap you with a laser from here. And there's also an eject button. If no one laughs at my jokes, I can get you kicked out with this clicker here. I moved to Miami Beach 8 years ago, and this is one of the nicest places in the world to live for whoever is not from here. There was nothing here 8 years ago when I moved here, and now what most people don't know is we have the second longest skyline in the United States. Even people that live in Miami don't realize that, and you see that when you travel from Miami to Miami Beach. I have a company, Standpoint Research. I've been putting out stock and cryptocurrency recommendations for the last 10 years. I have given more than 100 television, newspaper, radio, and magazine interviews, and I'm a headline speaker at conferences around the world. I have a top 20 ranking versus more than 4,800 people in my industry for the last 10 years. Every one of my 600 recommendations was time-stamped intraday by at least 3 different news wires. I grew up in New York. I have a little bit of an accent because I lived in Israel for 10 years, from 1983 to 1993. And I have 3 websites as well. The Standpoint Research website, a philanthropy and philosophy website, and a photography website. Last year, I was ranked number 5 in the country versus all of the major firms on Wall Street for my performance. And I have a number 18 ranking versus 4,700 people over the period spanning 2009 to 2018. I have a service where I put out emails a few times a week to my subscribers. And during the course of the year, you get dozens of stock and crypto recommendations from me. The stock recommendations are generated by a 155 variable computer model that took me 5 years to develop back in the 1990s. Once I get an idea off the computer model, I apply heavy fundamental and subjective overlays before going out with an actual recommendation. So I don't tell you I like a name because it scored well on my computer model. I'm giving you a 20, 30-page report to back it up. In my view, the stock market is overvalued right now. I've been saying that for the last few months. We've already dropped more than 3,000 points off the high. I think the market is still a little bit overvalued. That being said, I think over the next 15 to 20 years, it will probably double from where we are today. So if it comes down any further, it's probably a buying opportunity for anyone that has a long-term outlook. When you go to my website, if you want to sign up for the service, there is a coupon code for people at the conference this week. And it's an annual subscription. When you sign up, you get a list of all my current open stock and crypto recommendations. And then I add you to my mailing list, and you will hear from me a few times a week and get all of my new recommendations as they come out during the 12 months that you're subscribed. A week doesn't go by that I am not asked to be a headline speaker at conferences around the world. I've recently done conferences in Dallas and Las Vegas. I have conferences scheduled for Miami later this week, and Singapore and Las Vegas for later in the year. I usually have only one condition when I'm asked to speak at a conference. If they let me speak about the poor people in this world, I show up. If they don't let me speak about the poor people in this world, I don't show up. We have more than 1 billion people in the world right now living below the poverty line, and it shouldn't have to be that way. I was in Haiti last year with the executive director of one of the largest charities in the world. I've given a lot of my time and money to them So they invited me to go with the executive director to Haiti. The picture in the upper left is a village that we built in 3 months. 160 homes. It cost us less than $1 million to take 1,000 people off the street. That hurricane that hit Haiti last year was supposed to hit Miami Beach. They were left homeless, and we were left in the houses that we live in, and we didn't even care about what happened to those people. What most people in this audience spend on their own personal residence would have been enough to take 1,000 people off the street. And that's what this charity does. I was on the soup kitchen. That's a photograph in the lower left, where people wait online for an hour and a half just to get a meal from us. And the charity I work with gave out hundreds of millions of meals last year. In the lower right, you see a picture of a woman who was living in a tin shack. $3,600. We took her out of the tin shack and put her into a 300-square-foot concrete hurricane-proof home. You know, there are people that will spend $200,000 on their own automobile, but they would not think about maybe sending a shipment of shoes, a container load of shoes to a country in South America or Africa to put shoes on the feet of children that don't have shoes to wear. But they will spend $200,000 on their own automobile. I got so tired of hearing people telling me that they don't want to give money to charity because they don't trust any of the charities. That's a horrible excuse. It only takes a few minutes to go online and find charities that have high rankings, are efficient and productive and honest. I built a website. It's philanthropyandphilosophy.com. I highlighted 24 charities on that website. Every one of the images that you see on the homepage, you can click on, and it opens up a 4-page report. You can find 2 or 3 charities out of those 24, whatever strikes a nerve with you, and send money to them directly. There are a lot of people that are suffering that were not born in the same situation that we were in, and not enough people talk about this. When we were growing up in the United States, we were taught that slavery was abolished 150 years ago. In my opinion, we haven't made much progress. You look at the continent of Africa right now, we have raped an entire continent of everything that they have. Not just the publicly traded companies in the United States, publicly traded companies in Europe and other places around the world. Look at Africa. This is a rich continent with gold, coffee, aluminum, oil, diamonds, copper, platinum, tea, and aluminum. And we raped everything out of their country, stripped them dry. We paid politicians a few dollars under the table. We left breadcrumbs for the workers that helped us to extract what is there. And the millionaire and billionaire shareholders of these publicly traded companies are living in mansions and riding their yachts on the weekends. The picture on the top are 6 children that I met on the 8th of January, 2013 in Ethiopia. It was Christmas Day on their calendar. And these kids walk every day to school, 1.5, 2 miles each way, barefoot on a dirt road, and then they walk home. And then they have to walk in the opposite direction to fill up a bucket of water so that their mother can wash their clothes and cook something for them in the evening. Below there is a sweatshop in Asia. This is where Amazon, Walmart, and Nike make their money. We support these companies. The millionaire and billionaire shareholders are sitting on trillions of dollars, and it all came on the backs of these workers. Blood, sweat, and tears of these workers that get paid $3 an hour or $2 an hour so that we can live comfortably. I have one more slide before I get into the cryptocurrency part of my presentation. A lot of people don't realize that for a few $100,000, you can build an orphanage for dozens of children in a third world country like Haiti or a country in Africa. It only costs a few $100,000. A 9-structure facility that would include a library, administrative offices, a greenhouse, dormitories, a playroom, a classroom, a kitchen, a health clinic, and a church. It only costs a few $100,000 to do that. There are people that spend millions of dollars on their own residence when they could be taking dozens of children off the street for a few $100,000. And to maintain the orphanage costs less than $10,000 a month going forward. Now I will move into the cryptocurrency part of my presentation. Before I get to that, on a lighter note, I will be going to the World Cup in Russia to see some soccer games at the end of June and the beginning of July. I don't want to upset anyone here from Colombia, Brazil, Argentina, France, or Belgium, Germany, but I got some inside information today that Belgium may be the team that wins the World Cup this year. We have anybody from Belgium here? Belgium? All right. I think you guys may have a shot, and the bookmakers are giving 12-to-1 odds right now on Belgium. Italy is not going to be participating, and neither is Holland, so Belgium may be able to surprise some people this year. There's a lot of technology people in the crowd, but a lot of people here, to my shock, have not invested in cryptocurrencies, even though this is right up your alley. We currently have $200 trillion in the world tied up in stocks, cash, bonds, and gold, and all four of those are overvalued. If just 2% of that $200 trillion ends up in cryptocurrency, you would be looking at a $4 trillion valuation, 9 times where we are today. In my slide, it says 15 times where we are today. But that's because I had to prepare this presentation 3 weeks ago. That was the deadline that I had to get this PowerPoint presentation to the organizers of this conference. When I sent this to them 3 weeks ago, Bitcoin was at $6,600. We hit $9,300 today. 40% move in 3 weeks. My target is 4 times where we are today. And looking out 3 to 5 years, I think Bitcoin will hit $100,000. And all we need for it to go to $100,000 is for it to maintain its current market share and for the cryptocurrency arena to go to $4 trillion, which is a conservative estimate. $4 trillion would still put crypto below where the gold market is today. Now, a lot of people don't understand how I could compare Bitcoin with gold, and it's very simple. I don't know how much gold there is in the ground, but I know how much Bitcoin there is. And in a few years, there are going to be 100 million people around the world trying to get their hands on a few million Bitcoin. And that is what is going to drive the price to $100,000 or higher. When Bitcoin hit its peak in December, it was number 18 in the world out of 190 currencies. So it was already in the top 10%. And in my view, it's going to hit the #1 spot in the next 10 to 15 years, and it will catch up with China and gold, which coincidentally are tied at the #1 position right now. If Bitcoin catches gold and China, the price will go to $250,000. We're at 9,300 right now. This is the chart for Amazon, 15-year chart. There's a very good chance that this is what the Bitcoin chart will look like 15 years from now. In life, you miss every shot that you don't take. That's a basketball analogy. If you don't take a shot, you can't make it. This is a shot that is worth taking. I think it would be a lot more painful to watch this go up from the sidelines than to take a bet on this and end up losing the bet. There are no slam dunks here. Bitcoin could go a lot lower than where it is right now. It could be manipulated. It will move based on supply and demand, consumer confidence, regulations, and news headlines. And it did come down really hard back in January, February, March, but it was being manipulated, and I will get to that in a minute. There is no guarantee that Bitcoin will remain at the top of the mountain. You remember what Buster Douglas did to Mike Tyson. You see what Amazon is doing to the shopping malls right now, what Uber is doing to the yellow taxi cabs, what Facebook did to MySpace, and what iPhone did to BlackBerry. So you have to be diversified. There are more than 1,000 cryptocurrencies right now. More than 90% of them are garbage, scam operations, low quality, high risk. But still, you have to be diversified because there is no guarantee that Bitcoin will lead the move from $428 billion, which is where crypto is today, to $2, $3, or $4 trillion, which is the direction I think we will be going in the next 3 to 5 years. The market sends you clear signals, and you can't ignore those signals that the market sends you. If you remember what happened in the NASDAQ 20 years ago, that is exactly what is happening right now. 20 years ago, there were hundreds of names in the NASDAQ. There were 10 or 20 or 30 really good names, and the market cap rankings told you crystal clear what names those were. Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, Apple, Microsoft. The market told you which names to buy, which names to hold on to, and 20 years later, those people are doing really well. Today, the cryptocurrency market cap rankings are showing you that same sign. You don't want to go outside the top 50 because most of those names will go to zero. But a lot of the names that are in the top 50 right now, and I give that list to my subscribers, will do very well over the next few years. I remind you, this was prepared on the 31st of March. And you see Bitcoin had a valuation of $112 billion, and the price was $6,600. By coincidence, I prepared this at the bottom of the market. Right now, we've already jumped 40% since this slide was made a few weeks ago. In my view, there's going to be a watershed moment or a couple of watershed moments in the next 6, 12, 18 months. There are a lot of countries in the world that have currencies that lose 2, 3% a month of their value. Anyone who is from South America knows what I'm talking about. And a lot of these countries are sitting on billions and billions of dollars of their own currency that is losing value on a daily basis. And it is only a matter of time before a few of these countries decide they've had enough, they can't take any more pain, and they are going to allocate part of their reserves to the sovereign wealth funds and strategic reserves and allocate money towards cryptocurrencies. I think what also is going to be a watershed moment is that right now it's not user-friendly. There are a lot of security issues involved. There's hacking, there's uncertainty, and the average person doesn't know how to open up an account, trade the account, and protect what they have in their accounts that are not insured. And it is only a matter of time before someone comes along with a one-stop solution where you can just go to your online brokerage account, click one button, and transfer 5 or 10 or 15% of your money out of bonds and stocks and into cryptocurrency. This is what the internet users chart looks like, that blue parabolic line. We went from 10 or 20 million users in 1998 to billions of users in the last 20 years. The watershed moment was when the Netscape browser went online, and we went from 20 million users to 1 billion users overnight. If you look at that red circle, that's where cryptocurrency is right now on the internet chart. Now, I'm not telling you that we are going to have the same amount of crypto accounts as we have people on the internet, but the charts will look similar. They will both go in a parabolic direction before all is said and done. You should not take a bet that you can't afford to lose. Everyone has to decide for themselves how much they are comfortable putting into this new asset class. Some people will put 5% into it. Some people would put 50% into it. But it should be part of everyone's diversified portfolio, in my opinion. If the bulls are right on this, you can get a 500 or a 1,000% return over the next 5, 10, 15 years, and all you're risking is a few months of your salary. The payoff is that you end up getting to retire 3 or 4 or 5 years earlier than what you had planned on. We are in the early stages of this game. If you want to use a soccer analogy, we're in the 15th minute of a 90-minute game that could end up going into overtime. If you want to use a baseball analogy, we're in the first or the second inning right now. So there will be a lot of volatility. I am not trying to compete with people on the internet for who has the highest price target for Bitcoin. I have more than 40,000 people following me on Twitter. Most of them are saying that I'm being too conservative, and I'm okay with that. There are people that have $1 million targets on Bitcoin, and most of you are familiar with them. James Altucher has a $1 million target on Bitcoin. I'm speaking this week in Miami at the BC Nation conference in Miami. John McAfee will be on stage with me. He also has a $1 million target on this. Everyone, most of the people who understand Bitcoin believe that this is going much higher. It's just a question of how high we go and how long it takes to get there. Everyone is coming up with the same price target, but each person is going about it in a different manner. In my particular instance, I wrote an 87-page report on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and I sent that to whoever signs up for my service. There are other people that will just look at a chart and tell you that that is where it's going. On the left, you can see someone that applied a logarithmic nonlinear regression analysis and came up with a $100,000 target for Bitcoin, looking out 3 to 5 years. On the right side, you see someone that just took a chart and figured out what is going to happen to the price of Bitcoin if the supply continues to shrink and the demand continues to increase. It's going to be like a short squeeze that you have in the stock market. Again, I think you should be focusing on names that are in the top 25, top 50. There are more than 1,000 names there. Most of the names at the bottom are garbage, and you are playing with fire if you think you're going to make money going into the gutter where most of those names are. You might end up picking a name that goes up a few 100%, but most of these names will end up going to zero. It's very easy to pull off a scam in this business right now because there's very little regulation. All you need is $25,000 for a website, $25,000 for a white paper. You need someone who you pay money under the table, a celebrity or professor, to sign off on the white paper, and then you pay someone to stand in front of the public and lie to them on behalf of the coin that you invested in. And a lot of people are going to get hurt if they try to go into the get-rich-quick schemes and scams that are out there, because there are a lot of people trying to take advantage of the fact that there is no regulation right now. There was a company named Theranos. It was a health technology company known for its false claims to have devised revolutionary blood tests that used a very small amount of blood. At its peak in 2014, this company had a $9 billion valuation. Last month, the founder and the president were charged with massive fraud by the SEC. So this is a company that was regulated, and they pulled off a $9 billion fraud. And look at the people that they had on their board of directors. There was a CEO of a company with $33 billion in annual revenue on the board of directors. David Boies, you guys might remember him as the lawyer who was involved in the United States versus Microsoft case. He was also involved in the Bush versus Gore case. There was a former director of the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. There was James Mattis, who is currently the US Secretary of Defense, on the board of directors. A former executive vice president at Amgen was on the board of directors, and so was George Shultz, who was the Secretary of State, the Secretary of the Treasury, and the Secretary of Labor in the 1970s and 1980s. So if someone can pull off a $9 billion fraud in broad daylight, the way Theranos did, you can't trust any of the cryptocurrency names that are outside the top 25 or the top 50, because the odds are it's a scam. The problem with investing in crypto right now is the same problem that biotech investors have. Do you go into a name when it's in phase 1 and they are still doing the drug trials? Or do you wait until phase 1 is over with and no people died on the drug trials and the project is still on the board? Do you wait until phase 2 when they do additional testing and additional trials? Or do you wait until phase 3? Some people will not go in at phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3. They wait until the drug is approved and on the shelves and see that there are no side effects. The problem is if you wait until phase 3, or if you wait until the drugs are on the shelves, it's going to cost you 3 or 4 times more to get into the game. So you can buy Bitcoin right now for $9,300. There is still uncertainty, there are obstacles in the way, and there's risk involved. But you have 500 to 1,000% upside if you get in right now. If you wait until the coast is clear and there's nothing more to worry about, guess what? It's going to cost you $50,000 to get into Bitcoin, and you may only have 100% upside remaining from that point to where my price target is. I remind you again, I wrote this 3 weeks ago exactly, when Bitcoin was collapsing. It went from $20,000 in December to $6,600 on the 31st of March. And that was the day that I wrote this slide. And anybody that's following me on Twitter knows that I posted screenshots on my Twitter page that I was buying Bitcoin at $10,000, $9,000, $8,000, and $7,000. All the way down I was buying it because I know that it's being manipulated right now, and it's undervalued by between 50 and 100%. How is the price of Bitcoin being manipulated? It's very simple. There are billionaires in the world, billionaires and multi-billionaires, that want to accumulate as much of this as they can. They want to accumulate $200, $300, $400 million worth of Bitcoin. But they don't want to pay $15,000 or $20,000 for each Bitcoin. So you have sharks and consortiums and cartels and whales that say, okay, we're going to crash the market right now, and we're going to dump 20, 30, $40 million of Bitcoin on the market. That creates selling pressure. Then these technical analysts, who I don't agree with at all, come out with their sell signals. That creates a panic, and then the market capitulates. And that's what happened in March. Once the market capitulates, the people that dumped the first batch of $20, $30, $40 billion on the market quietly come in as the market is capitulating, and they buy back 5 to 10 times the amount of Bitcoin that they sold for pennies on the dollar. And now they're riding it back up right now. And these are the people that you're competing against. It's like going into a boxing ring with someone who is twice your size. And you have to understand what you're doing, because this is not a game for amateurs. But whoever is getting good advice is probably going to do very well. There are risks, there are concerns. Anyone that goes to CoinDesk.com or Cointelegraph.com knows this. There are dozens of countries around the world that are heavily involved with cryptocurrency and Bitcoin right now. And there are headlines coming out of every single country on a daily basis. But these are all dominoes that eventually are going to get knocked down. I'm not worried about any of the headlines. There's a supply-demand imbalance here that is mind-boggling, and people need to take advantage of that and disregard all the noise. The head of the IMF, Christine Lagarde, said the same thing recently. We're in a new industry. There's going to be headlines coming out that scare people. You have to just disregard it, because I don't think anything can stop the momentum that is behind this right now. Just like you had the airplane and the automobile and the internet, this is our generation's opportunity to make money like people 25 years ago did with Amazon and Google and Facebook. That's the end of my presentation. If you walk outside to the left, next to the Columbia station and the American Airlines station, I have a table set up there if anybody wants additional information. Thank you.